Greetings, everybody, and welcome back for another BMF Discussions podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and tonight I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
It is going very well, or you can address me by vibrating beds and skillets, because that's what we got this season.
We
This
got
episode, it was.
we definitely got that this season, but this episode especially, yeah, I guess everybody had to they had to get them a little bit of action, one way or another. Um, Ridiculous. So tonight we're going to be talking about BMF season 2, episode 8. Push it to the limit. And
Mm,
metaphorically speaking, that's exactly what they did in this episode. So before I get into the few questions that I have, I want to basically, I think we should give our initial first impressions of this episode because I may say some things tonight that people may not like, but I have to keep it real. So how about you go first, though, Dana? Let us know what you thought about this episode.
mm. um, Here's the thing. I think they did a really great job of establishing some characters and some storylines, while also letting me down on some characters and some storylines. I really liked what they did with B-Mickie, his whole situation, especially kind of towards the end, and how the relationship between Meech and Big Mickey and B Mickey is going to look hopefully in the upcoming season 3 and also the finale episode. That's intertwined with what we've seen with Detective Jin and Detective Bryant. I felt that that was a disappointment, and I didn't really feel that it was needed. I don't think that it adds anything to the show. I think that it was just a filler. Um, Also, on top of that, I did appreciate what we're getting with Terry and Lakeisha. I do not like Lakeisha, and this one made me not stand her. So I completely cannot stand her even more. She frustrated me. But also, it did a really great job of establishing the relationship between Lawanda and Meech, as well as Lawanda and Terry. And this we'll talk about later on because I did interview the actress who plays Lawanda, and she really talks about season 3 and what we can expect for her character. And we got sprinklings of that for this episode. So I liked what they did with that. I felt that overall, they also showed the connects that they made, I think, with Ohio and how that's going to, you know, go into season 3 as well. I did like Leslie Jones. She was a plus for me. Leslie Jones is a kind of actress who is a hit or miss for me. I did not like her when we first was introduced to the character, but now I like her. I like her when she plays less comedy. I know she's known for her comedy, but I really feel that her drama can be is a lot stronger than her comedy. Just a personal thing. So I really liked her with this season, but also we got an interesting thing of how and it's really interesting that we can dive into later, how she is kind of, you could say, portrayed as working with, I think it was DEA. She's a special agent. So with her and her case, how she is very close to making sure that it stays her case and she doesn't lose it to anyone else, but also how much information that the detectives don't have. So there's a lot of things that's like a wing and a prayer that they're hoping to get. So I that was interesting, but again, a downfall for me was the K9 situation. So it was a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but overall, I thought it was an okay episode. It was just a filler episode. So maybe that means that we're gonna get a better episode come the next episode.
Well,
I hope.
that's certain. Well, hopefully that's a possibility for next week. And of course, the season finale is the following week. We'll see. So let me first start off by saying, excellent first impressions as always. My initial impressions after this episode. Listen, BMF is a show that I think is entertaining, but there is some stuff that is very minimally explained in the show, and this
Mm,
episode is a perfect example of that because there's a couple of things that happened in this episode. I'm like, didn't make any kind of sense. It's the little things, but obviously, if you're watching things that happen on a week to week basis, it definitely stands out as taking a step back. So I agree with a lot of things, the things that you said about there were some ups and some downs in the episode. Like I said, we'll get into those, into all of that stuff. But my initial thought is I did not like this episode. I was entertained with the episode. I still think this
Mhm.
show is a hell of a lot better than Force season one. So that's good. It is better than Power Force, you know. But again, yeah, it's like it's about entertaining and getting to the action, and they don't really take a lot of time to really explain certain things. But like I said, I'll give examples because I don't want to be the kind of person that says this stuff and then I don't have examples to back up my argument. My argument. So we'll get into that later. But right now, let's start by getting into some of the questions I had for tonight, and then we'll just talk about some of the general storylines that happened this week on the show. So let's go to my first question. All right. I want to give a shout out to Inga71 because I know that last week we were talking about, Monique and Lamar in their relationship. Now I know that we made some errors when because we didn't call her Monique. We got that mixed up with Lawanda or Wanda, whatever, multiple names, whatever. But we have established that yes, this is about Monique. So in this episode, we did see that once again, Lamar came over to her place and he basically shows her the urn in which he has Blackie. Basically talks about he's very down, the fact that he lost his dog, and he basically is there to basically try to have have some type of connection with her. And of course, they do end up doing some drugs together. Later on in the episode, he decides to take a shower, take a bath there, and he asks for her to assist him, and she kind of struggles to do that. She does go pull out her gun like as if she was going to kill him right then and there, and then she doesn't do it, but then she just goes into the bathroom with him. Now, before I get to my question, I just want to say this. This is a critique. The whole thing about, Blackie, being that you now have him cremated or whatever, there was really no explanation of that because last week we saw that Lamar left that dog in the at the church because you recall Pastor Swift told him get out of here. So I would assume at some point he went back and got his dog. I mean, I just thought that was interesting how they just said, "Oh well, let's forget about that." The dog was cremated, and but there was not really any explanation because we know that the pastor wasn't going to let him back in. When he told him to get out of there, I thought that was, when he pulled out the gun, that was pretty serious. So stuff like that, I noticed. I'm like, that didn't make any kind of sense. But again, for entertainment purposes, to push the story forward, I guess it is what it is. But my question was specifically, we saw that Monique was having issues going through with her plan to take out Lamar, and then you see later in this episode, you know, Meech does correspond with her. She's talking about Zoe, because she says, when she's at the skating rink, she's saying, "Oh, Zoe would have loved this." And yes, we know that Zoe is not there because they sent her away. So, and Meech is telling her to stick to the plan. Now, obviously, we know that she will do whatever she has to do when it comes to dealing with Lamar. So, my question is, after this episode, do you think that her plan to take out Lamar is still on track, or do you think that it's starting to venture off course, and then she may find herself back with Lamar? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm muted. One thing I want to backtrack just a wee bit because of that criticism with Lamar.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought that it was perfectly fine how they did that. He came into the church, kind of basically saying, God doesn't exist and he's God now, and that was just a showcase that kind of blow to him as a man, and to show that he felt like he was completely abandoned by God. To also, it showed how much he loved Blackie. Blackie was a metaphor for him.
Mm-hmm. You're muted.
I'm muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you now. Go ahead.
I know that there are some things that are need to be seen, but for this, I didn't think that we needed to see that. the process of him being in the urn and the fact that he is still forever with him. And he stated that he wants, his whole family under one roof, and that includes Blackie.
Hmm.
I thought that that was actually very beautifully done, and I thought that transition worked very well for what he is going through and just in general with him and Blackie. And it also showed his upbeat attitude despite the fact that death is all around him. He did state that how come everything that I love dies.
Yep.
So that was very powerful. And you can look at it, oh, it's just a dog. That dog was more than just a dog. If you looked at it, it was someone who was abused all throughout its entire life, died of its injuries, and he wanted it to be loved because that was something that he genuinely kind of never felt and never received. Remember, he was raised in foster care. So
Yep.
I thought that, again, that was beautifully done. Now, to go back with the question involving with him and Mo, I'm very interested with what is going on with their dynamic of the relationship. I feel that she is, I don't want to say is starting to catch feelings, but she is becoming comfortable again with him. Lamar is, and this is a credit to the writing, Lamar is not a one dimensional character. It's very easy for him just to be like, I'm Lamar, I'm going to go and run the streets and kill everybody. It is to show the different layers and textures that he has as a person. That yes, he can be violent and brutal, but at the same time, he can be very loving and comforting. And that kind of goes with what we've seen with the previous episode in terms of, remember, two sides of the same coin. So I thought that that was expertly done. And again, reminded me of Omar from The Wire, who again had a multitude of different personalities, of different, he had codes, and there were so many things where yes, he may have contradicted himself, but that's what makes a person a person. You're not just straight and narrow and one set of rules and one set of things. So I love that. And with Mo, you know, I felt that a person, when you're attached to someone like Lamar, he's not going to straight away start saying beating you or treating you unkind. He's not right away going to show that awful side of himself. He's going to be welcoming. He's going to be comforting. And I really think that that just harpers back to what he was in the beginning as to why she fell in love with him. She also explained why she fell in love with him. He was the first person to make her feel beautiful. You're not going to do that when you're knocking somebody in the head with a gun. So there, it just shows the other side to Lamar. That I feel is what's making it even harder for her um to just kill Lamar. And I don't know whether or not she is going to go through with it. And that is what I love, that I don't know part. Because if he was the same Lamar that we have met from previous episodes, then it would have been much easier for her to do that. I wonder if it's going to actually be Mo who pulls the trigger when he does die. And who's to say he even dies at all? I'm wondering if he is going to feel that betrayal with Mo and maybe he kills her. What was interesting is that bathroom scene that we had. Remember how he was drawing the water in the tub? And it was a sense of, to me, it felt like an uncertainty. Remember, he was like, come on, Mo. And then it was that pause that they took with him just sitting there alone in that bathtub, not knowing whether or not she was going to come in. And at that same time, she was fiddling with the gun and trying to decide whether or not she was going to shoot him. And remember, she started to physically beat herself up about it. So I think that he does know. He's not stupid. I think that he does know, and he is waiting for either her to do the deed or for him to have to maybe confront her about it. So I cannot answer that question, but I do like the fact that she is struggling with whether or not she wants to kill him. And this also goes to show with the whole Meech situation. Remember, she sent her child away so that she's not involved, not just, because Lamar is unsafe, but because the whole environment, especially involving with Meech and Terry, makes it also unsafe. There's a lot of drive-bys that was happening between the two of them. So I don't know what is going to happen with that. But also, I wanted to add the inclusion of drugs. I'm really interested to know how this is going to kind of uh, how it's going to affect her actions. I don't know if she's going to just do the drugs casually. I don't know if she's going to become an addict. I know that this is both a stress reliever for both Lamar and Mo. Lamar seems to have a much better handle on the situation, but then again, this also harpers back to, remember, we thought they was going to taint the drugs, and that's how Lamar dies. So I wonder if they're keeping the drugs in the back of our minds as viewers to say this is a callback to maybe he dies of a overdose. I don't know. So overall, I just can't answer your question because it is so well done. So I like that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say yes, a very very good explanation by you on pretty much everything that you discussed. So I mean, I I personally think that the plan has changed based on what has happened in this episode. I feel like she's still going to do whatever she wants to do, but of course, I am curious to see what happens with this situation. The only thing that I am concerned about is that at the end of this episode, you did see that once again Lamar stepped into the picture. He robbed Saki's aunt, who was a driver now for Terry, robbed her at the very end. And again, once again, Terry and Meech are saying we have to deal with Lamar. So listen, I like the actor that plays Lamar. He's a great
Love him.
character. But I have a concern as to how far this storyline goes because it feels like they just wanted to extend this throughout the entire season, which is fine. They can do that. But going into season three, I would like to see them focusing more on expanding the business because we know with BMF, and obviously Gary's not here to really talk about this, it expanded into other stuff because they were doing music as well. So I would love to see them finally focus on that stuff because I know some people are watching the show, they feel like it's the same show as it was last season because you still have this back and forth with Lamar and such. So I hope that it is going to be a little bit different season three. But overall, yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens with Monique and Lamar. So I will definitely keep watching to see what happens with that whole storyline for sure. Um, Go ahead.
And can I just wanted to bring up two things.
Yeah,
Again, this kind of goes back to Lucille. Ever since that prayer, you notice a kind of levity within Lamar. Like he's a little bouncy. He's less angry, even though he's still doing what he does. But there's a little bit of openness to him, and I like that. And another thing, they let him put lotion on this episode, so he's not ashy. He was moisturized.
yeah. He was. Yeah, he wasn't as
Self
crazy in
care.
this episode. You're right. Self care is important. He wasn't as crazy in this episode as he has been in the other episodes. So making an attempt to change for sure. I agree 100%. Um,
And
yeah,
I wonder if this means that he's less depressed because we knew that he was going through depression. We saw him with Alvin, and they had that conversation and that discussion, and he seems to be taking better care of himself, and also the colonoscopy bag. By just being seen by Mo, even though she is planning to kill him, um, there is a happiness to him and lotion. So I'm very excited and happy about that.
absolutely. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where things go from here. So since you mentioned Lucille, let's get into the next question that I was going to ask because the biggest for me, one of the bigger storylines, and again, this is one thing I do like about BMF because I did say earlier in this podcast that it feels as though some stuff that happens in the show, it's it just happens, to get to just let's not have any build up. Let's just get to the immediate action for the sake of, getting people excited. But they've done a very good job with this whole Charles, Lucille, and Mabel storyline as far as how it started. It wasn't something where from episode one Charles was cheating. No, they gave it enough time to breathe. They showed you the issues within the marriage, and they let it play out. So see, that is a good idea. I mean, that's a good example of them telling a story well done. However, we do have to talk about what happened in this episode because we did see that once again, Mabel came over earlier in the episode. Mabel came over, you know, she came over, and at that point, she was trying to drop off some. What was it? She's trying to drop off some a dish or so to. Well, go ahead to Lucille. You're muted.
Yep. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just leave it as it is. You can't hear the fan, can you?
No. No. No, I
Okay,
can't.
great. So what it was she came to borrow a
Yeah.
skillet. You know, they serve
Yeah.
clothes that they borrow skillets and brooms and pots and pans and coffee. You know, so yeah, she came in to
And
borrow a skillet, which I wonder. Oh, sorry.
oh no, go ahead. Continue.
No, I just genuinely wonder if it was actually borrowing a skillet. I think that she wanted to see Charles, and that she said that it's a little danger side to that. Lucille she's gonna assume right upstairs. She could be lurking around the corner, but even if she's lurking around the corner, that's just extra excitement. And Charles is like getting little tiny mini heart attacks, but he didn't back down. So, boo Charles. Just
Yes.
boo him. It's the level of disrespect. Like, fine, you're gonna go have an affair. And remember, we had the conversation with Meech is like, what took you so long? Okay, fine. People have affairs. They cheat. But the disrespect of it being in the house. Now, granted, they didn't have the hanky panky manky in the house, but the fact that she was rubbing up all on him and whispering about fluid in the same house where Lucille was right upstairs, that's just
Yep.
a level of disrespect. I know that it's like, oh, it's a level of danger and it makes me all hot and bothered, but no, disrespectful. And the fact that he said something, but you can tell that he really wasn't pushing against it. I just
Yep.
wonder, where is Charles? Where does he stand in terms of, I don't want to say, just putting his foot down and saying no, even if you're going to have an affair, there are certain boundaries you do not cross, and you should lay that right on the table. And she is allowed to walk all over him, which is really
Yep.
interesting because remember, if you look at the dynamic between Charles and Lucille, she feels that he's not being heard in the relationship at all,
Mm-hmm.
and that she's walking all over him, and he wants to be the man, and he wants to take control of certain things. And while he may not have the finances to be the man that he wants to really be, or what's considered man, he still feels less than because she has such a tight rein on the whole situation. But then here comes Mabel, and she's basically doing the same thing again. She's controlling the narrative, and she's even controlling the affair. So I'm just wondering, where, just in general, is this manhood at? What exactly are you taking control of? Because even if you're like saying, I'm going to go and have an affair, that's a way of controlling a certain situation. I'm going to go and agree to this. And, I'm going to meet you at this place and I'm going to set this up. He's not even doing that. She's even setting up where the hotel is at. And then he's paying the bill. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and not to, I know, it's very, I don't know how to say this. Please don't cancel me. But it seems like he's taking the woman role in the relationship. Well, in terms of paying. Well, he did pay. But still at the same time, it's like you're being bossed around and then you're still paying. And this is money that can go towards the house. Like, what was it, $48, $24? Point is, they're broke. But you're spending a lot of money at a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, and you're
Yep.
fixing up her house. Meanwhile, their house is looking like something out of Shaggy Doo. So, yeah, whatever. I just don't like Charles at this point. I'm very disappointed.
Well, I understand the disappointment. I do want to say though, however, you did a very excellent interview with Russell Hornsby. So I would recommend that
Mhm.
anyone, if you're listening to this discussion and you did not watch that interview, you should watch the interview and hear what he said about his character and how he describes how the character is. Because he said a lot of very
Mhm.
powerful things in the interview, and he also highlighted the fact that this was a different time than it is now because this was in the 80s. So obviously there's a lot of things that are different now than they were before. So I think it's an interview that you need to listen to if you want some context as to what the character is thinking. And yes, nobody's saying the character did anything right. He was absolutely 100% wrong. The question I had was, I think you already answered it.
Did I?
Is this a yeah? The question I had is this affair truly over? Because as you said, Mabel is controlling the situation. She tells him, you know what? I borrowed you from Lucille. I think it's time to give you back to
Borrowed.
Lucille. Yep.
Like, wait, this whole thing. This is why I fell out laughing. If you really look at this whole situation, and this again goes to where is your backbone, sir? He was objectified and just used for his ding dong the whole time. He wasn't viewed as a person. He was just simply objectified. Like, oh, I'm done with you. I borrowed you. You can go back to your wife now. So to me, that was hilarious because again, it just shows that he is a follower. I need for him to be a doer. So I'm very disappointed. And even if he was to say, well, he was being appreciated, his wife Lucille doesn't really appreciate. And we had a conversation about this, about ego and appreciation. And back then they didn't really believe in mindfulness and therapy and talking about your feelings. Okay, fine, I understand that. But just to be objectified, there's a difference between, oh, someone desires me, I feel wanted, but to just be completely thrown away, I borrowed you like you were the dusty skillet that I borrowed. I'm asking, Lucille, can I borrow? And then you were in this janky motel with the vibrating bed and you can't find your rhythm. It was just, it's so sad. But in regards to if this affair is truly over, I hope it's not because I need some kind of spice within this show. Again, where is my dinner scene? No one is giving me my dinner scene. So, in order for me to get my dinner scene, I'm going to need this affair to continue. And I'm going to need this to continue with Lucille not knowing, remember, she doesn't know who the woman is. I'm going to need that big revelation at the dinner table next to a butcher knife. Make me happy.
Well, there was a photo that came out some time ago of Mabel at the dinner table with Nicole. So that is probably going to happen either in the next episode or in the finale, and then it'll be revealed that this is the person that Charles has been having an affair with. If I had to make a
I
guess,
hope it's. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
but
But-
I just wonder. Oh, sorry.
oh no, go ahead. I'm gonna go after you.
No, no, no. I just wonder in regards to that dinner scene because I is Charles. Here's the thing. Charles got thrown out twice this episode. First by Mabel after she was finished borrowing him, and then secondly by Lucille with the whole affair situation. And I'm tired of you. He has no place to go, essentially. So I wonder if this is going to make him try to go back to Mabel, or is this going to cause him to fight for his marriage? I don't know, but it can go either way. And so that is the one thing that I am uncertain about. Where is Charles without Lucille? If he loses his family, I think that that's over with for Charles. I don't know whether or not he can recover. Mabel's situation is not, he's not married to Mabel, but I just want to know where he'll be at mentally if Lucille truly does turn her back on him.
Well, that's a good question. I guess we will have to wait and see. As Russell Hornsby said in the interview, we have to keep watching to see what happens. But I do want to say this that yeah, I was not completely satisfied with how that storyline reached its highest peak in this episode, where the revelation happens at the skating rink, where when Lucille finds that receipt, I was like, man, I wanted that a better payoff for that. But hopefully, the dinner scene happens, and I think that's what they're banking on, is that that's the high point, because at this point now it's a mystery to Lucille is who is this other woman, So that's what I want to see how they handle that. But overall, though, like I said, I'm gonna say what I said earlier, and that is that I think that they've done an excellent job building up this whole storyline from the very beginning, because it showed you that there were issues within the marriage, and this is what happened as a result of those issues, and it will continue. So we got to see what happens next. Yeah.
That's true. Also, I kind of I wonder because of the breakup, her yelling at him was done in public at the skate rink. I wonder if this is going to now go back to be gossip for the parishioners at church because that
Hmm.
congregation,
Yep.
they're so raggedy. They just raggedy. And they would love something like this. They would just eat her up. And I hope she doesn't think that it's Sister Riley. Leave that woman alone. Let her
Oh yeah.
be.
Well, no, no. Well, hopefully they don't. I mean, that should be clarified. It's obviously not her from what happened earlier this season. Um, but I will say this: one thing I find very funny, and I'm going to use this as a segue point. Uh, I want to jump into somebody who was critical of this affair happening, and that is Terry, as Meech said, a very hypocritical individual, because this guy is literally messing around with a married woman. So I thought that was funny that he would be like, "Oh, so you knew all this time that our father was messing around." He has a lot of nerve to even talk in the first place. So I laughed when I saw that. Go ahead.
No, I just really think that the dynamic between father and son is really interesting. They're both stupid, by the way, but
Yep.
it seems to me that, again, both stupid in a small ways, very small, both stupid though, that Terry is a tad bit smarter than his father in regards to affairs. Because remember how he was telling about the business? See, it shows how smart he is in business, but stupid in his own relationships. How, with the business, how, remember they went down through Terry's car rules? And
Yep.
one of the things that stood out was no receipts, not any receipts from anywhere, not even if you was to go to the corner store, there are
Yep.
no receipts, no hotels, no motels, no anything because it can be traced back to you. No pens, no paperwork, nothing. And I just thought that it was really funny because how did Charles get found out? A receipt.
Yep.
So I like that dynamic. But yeah, what was the question?
Oh no, I just was going to use this as a bridge to talk about what happened with Terry in this episode. So you already alluded
Yeah,
to the fact that as they are
he's stupid.
expanding, obviously his job was to get some drivers. So he did get Saki's aunt and the veteran that they also brought aboard to assist as
Hmm.
drivers. And I did like how they explained the transporting of the drugs and money in the actual cars. I thought that was very, very well done explanation. Um, of course, though the whole episode, much like most of the season, Terry is whipped with Markeisha. He is obsessed. Now,
Like
I
his
don't
daddy.
like, yeah, like his daddy. But I do want to say this because we didn't really talk about this. The character. First and foremost, I think Lala is good. She's been in a lot of great shows. She's been in Power. She's been in all these other shows. But I think we can now say that it must be in her contract where she has to show some skin, because almost every show that she's been in a relationship, I've seen a lot of Lala, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of explicit there. That's a lot. It's a lot going on with those scenes, which is fine. But this character in particular, though, listen, the character is trifling. I have to say, from the standpoint of, it doesn't feel as though like she treats Terry like he's a boy. Then when Terry does these
He's
boss
a
moves,
boy.
because yeah, he is a boy. But then when Terry does these boss moves, he has all this money coming in. Oh, you want all these jackets, baby? I'll buy you all this stuff. Now she is all of a sudden all in and invested, and I do not like that's those stereotypes of the character. Obviously, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a lot of women out here today that they have the same mindset, where they just want to get the money and all this other stuff. I've seen it. I've seen it, and I know about this. So that's why I say that. But I'm just saying that this character in particular, obviously should not be messing around with Terry, but do have to acknowledge that she has helped him to think bigger from a business standpoint. So she kind of assisted in him becoming a boss, but it's kind of ridiculous how she's playing these back and forth games with him. And again, we still haven't gotten yet, Terry having this eventual confrontation with Boom. He did say in this episode when he brought that money back to give to him through her that now Boom is going to have to work with them or just get rolled over. So I kind of feel like now that confrontation is going to happen really soon at this point because Boone is not somebody who just answers to anybody, and he already didn't like Terry. You saw the way they interacted earlier this season, so I kind of feel
Mm-hmm.
like that confrontation is coming. Um, but overall, I know we have to see where things go with Markeisha and Terry. And yeah, we do have to mention the fact that she told him to cut off that ponytail, and that was Meech didn't like that. So obviously, yeah, wants to mold him into a man because he is still a boy. But I want to ask you, how do you feel about this relationship? Because I know we've had shout out to Inga 71. She did say that it makes her uncomfortable because this is a high school student messing around with a much older woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get your opinion on this because she left that question last week and we didn't really talk about this yet on the show. So I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, that is very good point. And so I wonder if we glamorize that behavior when it's a younger man versus, with an older woman as opposed to an older man with a younger girl. So that's a very interesting dynamic. But it again going back to the time period that the show is in, which is the 80s. That is something that, yes, still wrong, but people overlooked, and that is portrayed. We've seen it in media. If you used to go back, there's a movie called Gigi. The entire movie is about grown men falling in love with a 14-year-old. Disgusting. But that is the nature of, nobody pointed it out back then. It was just like, oh, she's young, she's 14. There's a whole song dedicated to like little girls. Very excited. Anyway, sidetracking, getting completely off the point. Yes, she is trifling. I do not like her, but at the same time, putting myself into her shoes, minus the pedo part, she is smart in terms of she's not molding, yes, you could say she's molding him into a man. She is molding him into the man that she wants him to be so that she can further her life and further the life of her kids. If she was to meet someone who was her own age, boom, but we don't know how old Boom is, but we're gonna assume her and Boom are the same equal status and age. If she was to meet someone like, say, a Boom, he would be much quicker to figure out what her entire deal was and the fact that she is using a man to get over in her life. Yes, she is educated, she is smart, but she's also using men to get out of her situation. Remember, once she wants the money, the cash, the clothes, the cars, the same thing that Boom is able to provide for her without having to walk away completely from that lifestyle and providing it for herself. Yes, she still works, but it's not the same money and the same provisions as what Boom provides. So we're going to go with someone who is much younger, both in age and also mentally. We're going to build him up from this boy to a man, make him think, oh, look at everything that I've done for you. Therefore, you owe me. She is using, yes, you can say her scenes, oh, she's always has her clothes off, but that right there is what is enticing Terry. Not to say that this isn't something that entices older men, because if you look at what's going on with Charles, same stupidity. But by all, look at this, look at what I can do for you in the bed sexually, that is what's kind of keeping him. You notice that the second she calls, boom, right away. This is more exciting as opposed to what Lawanda is dealing with. And remember, we showed Lawanda almost try to attack Meech and her with the roller blade skate thing. So, in a way, Markeisha, sorry, is very smart. And you can appreciate that as what she's doing. And she's able to constantly pick at him in order to form the person that she wants, make him feel guilty, gaslight him, so that he thinks he has to step up in order to provide for her. Remember, yes, you can view it as yes, we're doing everything for family, but he's also doing things for her. And also, you remember when they was inside of that mall and the store with the Arab guy, and she's getting and looking at all the different jackets. Oh, I want you to wear this jacket. Remember, he's like, oh, look at this jacket. It's really nice on you. And she's like, oh, it's too hood. Remember how she always wants him to dress a certain way, to look a certain way? So that also is another way to seep in and use psychology against him. And if he was to say disagree with certain things, look at the body. I'm gonna show up to the restaurant completely naked and do things with you in the bathroom. Which, by the way, I don't know how y'all do it without wearing any underwear. See, I'm afraid of all kind of infections and airs just blowing in and dust. So God bless y'all. Y'all are wonderful. But yeah. So you can look at it that way. She is very smart for doing what she needs to do for herself. Um, Another thing, she knows that in general, at right now, he is no real threat to Boom in terms of what they're doing with the business. I wonder if she thinks he will ever get to that level or even surpass Boom. Um, I think yes, yeah.
I was going to say, in my opinion, he already has surpassed Boone, but
Well, he
maybe
has,
it's not apparent yet. Yeah,
but how long lasting would that be? Remember, he showed up at the restaurant or the strip club, whatever that event venue was, and she was completely floored by what she was able to see. But I just wonder the dynamic, what's really going on with her and Boom. Yes, we know that she wants to leave and she wants to escape, but at the same time, does she really want that? I just because also you can look at it as the abused, battered woman situation. Her always going back to Boom. Remember
well,
when oh,
oh no, go ahead. I'll say what I'm going to say after you.
no, I was gonna say that. Remember when she even called Terry because he left her in the rain? She went back to Boom.
Yep. And
So
and
yeah,
and, and I was gonna and I was gonna add that the reason why she goes back though, because we share a kid together. That's why when I made that comment last week, maybe she's the one that is going to end up pregnant, because then that means that now you have to have something more serious with Terry, and you had to take it serious if you have a kid together. So that's I still think that could happen, because we haven't seen any baby. We heard that Lawanda is pregnant, but I would
ah,
not put it past them to say that Markeisha could be pregnant also, or that may be something that is revealed next season. I have no idea.
it's a hysterical pregnancy in terms of Lawanda. She's not really pregnant. It's an actual term. She's being made to believe that she is pregnant. She's not pregnant at all.
Okay.
I you can't no. No. But yeah, Marquisha's smart and just further to show that Terry's dumb. So, thoughts and prayers to that situation. I hope it doesn't last long. But then again, you have the whole pregnancy thing. And so that going in with Boom, I
Yeah.
wonder how that is going. Because also, you can look at it this way. It kind of foreshadowed that because remember the conversation that Terry had with Meech? Meech was basically, stay away from her. And then Terry said, I'm not going to listen to somebody who has two different baby mamas with two different kids with two different baby mamas, essentially. And if you look at it, Markeisha could later on be pregnant. So it's the pot calling the kettle black and everything else. So we'll see what
Oh,
happens.
oh yeah, yeah. We will see. And by the way, as was also a comment left last week by Inga 71, uh, the real Meech only has one kid, so that definitely was changed for the purposes of entertainment value of telling the story, because he
Mhm.
doesn't have all these kids. He only has one kid, and that's the kid that's playing him in the show. So very interesting. But but as I had alluded to in the comments, I said that whole thing of Meech being involved with with Monique and then Lamar, that's like a love triangle, I guess you could say, and that's why they have that whole thing about that whole thing about the father, so on and so forth. But we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
Um, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to say on Terry? Because I wanted to get to Meech after we talk about Terry.
No, that the whole thing with Terry, basically roll over or get rolled. I'm really interested to see what that would boom and his response. Um, he thinks he's the big boy now. We'll see. Certain people you just can't completely roll over because they will roll right back over you. So I look forward to that dynamic. But Terry needs to just calm down a little bit. And also,
Yeah,
I just hate the fact that she's molding him. And and it also just to show. I just need for him to speak up. Yes, there are benefits to Markeisha, but I don't want to say he's losing himself. He's not losing himself, but he is changing his identity more so for her and not knowing that he is changing the identity for her. It's being marketed as, oh, I'm making you into a man. So I just hope he is able to wake up from that because it's manipulation. And again, if this was the opposite switched genders, people would be flying off the handle.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Um, so I'm going to touch on Meech briefly in this episode. As we mentioned earlier, he does go to Ohio, and of course, he establishes new people in that area to take over, to give them territory, so on and so forth. I didn't really have any really I mean, I thought that was fine as far as explaining what he was doing in Ohio, so I didn't have any issues with that. Um, I was going to say that the thing about Meech is that you know they really portray him as he really is the really, in my opinion, as we said earlier on this show in previous episodes, the brothers work well together. But Meech really is somebody who is out there taking charge, making moves, and making things happen. He still needs his brother's assistance because he is not perfect, and Terry the same. But they really established that Meech is the one that's running things and taking matters into his own hands. So I thought that was handled pretty well in the episode. Um,
Hmm.
the one thing I did question, there was two things that I did not like. You mentioned this earlier. I do not like how they did K9 because, and you interviewed the actor. Shout outs to him because he has been commenting on our this show as well as the interview.
Hmm.
But I kind of feels like if that character does not show up in the next two episodes, obviously he's in custody now, right? But they basically saying that they can try to get to him to get to expose others that they want to get to. If he does not show up in the next two episodes, I think that is a bad way for the character to go out, because you think about how they introduced this character and then what he was doing at the beginning of this season, where they made him look like a significant threat. Of course, he was a mentor to Meech, so he did serve a purpose. But I kind of feel like for a character like that has such a short fuse, when you test him, I want to see that character go out in a glorious way. Whether if even if he's getting arrested or if he's getting taken out, whatever, I kind of feel like we should have seen him get a moment of showing you just how tough he was going out, but we didn't get a chance to see any of that. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next two episodes if he's going to be still around, but I was disappointed to see that that's the path they took. And then the explanation of, well, now we can take advantage of Ohio. Let's get others in here, get involved in this. They can grab some business. I understand what they were doing with that, but K9, yeah, that's I was not happy to see how they utilized him in this episode, or rather, didn't utilize him physically. But yeah, go ahead.
So to backtrack a wee bit with K9, he did comment because we had questions that we didn't understand, and he corrected
Yeah,
us on some things to just kind of show like how completely frustrated and angry I was with this episode and how they dealt with his character. So remember that he shot the woman in the face and then she turned around and made him some din din?
yep,
That was not the girlfriend. That was his mother.
Hmm.
Canine shot his mama in the face. So when you have a character who is that ruthless, and this is why we wanted Lamar and Canine to go up against each other so
Yep.
much, because yeah, that such fierceness. When you have a character that is like that, who shot his mother in the face, she turns around, botched face and all, bandaged up, fix him something to eat. I want to stay more with that character. Then you have the fact of the $20 million that he owes the Colombians and he refuses to pay. And he stated that the reason why he won't pay him back is that K9 feels that saving Cena's life is already worth $20 million. So there's no need for him to pay them back. I would have loved to have seen that conversation, that friction go down instead of him just arrogantly, I'm not going to pay him back. Yes, you can do both, but I needed just to see more from both sides. I wanted more scenes with him. And so there was a lot of things that he has all of this energy for, but then we have, oh, just a quick little monologue. He was arrested by the DEA. He had, what was it, 7 kilos, 70 kilos with him when he was arrested for distribution.
No,
So it was
it
more than
was
that, wasn't
50.
it?
No, it was 50 kilos.
50 kilos. Yeah,
Yep.
so he was 50 kilos, and that, possession with intent to distribute 50 kilos. And that all we go, God know that the DEA is involved because with him going down, it's going to be basically a bloodbath. Everyone's fighting for everything in terms of territory. So it's going to be a complete bloodbath. And they want, the whole thing when they introduced the new detective, which we'll talk about later. They introduced in a new detective, and the reason why they want to partner so much with Leslie Jones' character, who is Special Agent Chambers, was because they feel that caninism has important intel, and that he can lead to multiple arrests. You're telling me everything. And this is because, we're in the eighth episode, so we have to, I think it's eight, I'm not sure. We're in
Yep.
the high part of the season. So you're trying to wrap everything up so quickly. But this is stuff that would have been important because you're showing me how incredibly, how incredibly fierce this person is. I would have loved to seen him being taken down by the DEA. This to me felt like something we just randomly slapped on and threw together. So then this also makes me wonder, oh, we're just trying to wrap up this character, so he's not going to be seen in season 3. Oh yeah, he's with the DEA because with the charges that he has, he's not getting off anytime soon.
Yep.
70 kilos. That, granted, we're not in Rockefeller law right now, but just alone and you're black, you're not going home. If Denise got caught and she still ain't home yet, your black behind is gonna be sitting up in that jail. So,
Yeah. Well, I agree. Um, we'll see what happens. The fact that they do want to work with Agent Chambers, I guess that kind of gives you some hope that we will see the character again. But I have no idea. But if this is how he goes out and we don't see him anymore, then I will be very disappointed because that character they did a lot to establish more in this season. So you definitely, if he is exiting or leaving the show, I want to see him go out in a blaze of glory. That's just my personal opinion. But we'll
mm-hmm.
see what happens.
And that also further aggravates me because now, yes, we get Detective Chambers is back, but she just seems like she's coming back out of the blue and she's just yelling at people. You're not establishing her. You established her in the beginning and who she is, but I want something more as just a random thrown together. Yeah, look, we did this and I arrested him. Did you? I didn't see it. I would have
I
loved to
agree.
have seen Leslie Jones take down K9. That right there
Yeah.
is hilarity in itself. So,
Yeah.
well,
I
bye.
agree. I agree
It felt like they
100%.
wanted to wrap up story. It kind of felt like they wanted to wrap up so many storylines because they just didn't have an ending. So therefore, we don't get him and the Colombians battling out. We don't get to see Meech and Canine again. Now it was like all he basically said was, "Oh, you're the man now. I'm gonna go off to jail." I don't like it.
Exactly. I agree. And one last point that I will add, then we'll get into the other final 2 points I want to mention. Um, the other thing I didn't really, and this is something I didn't understand about the episode. Now, obviously, we know that Meech and Terry are working with the Colombians now. Obviously, they established that they have the car wash business now that they've also invested in. But at the very beginning of this episode, and you and I spoke about this, I see them inside a house, and I'm thinking to myself, this is probably a new property that they have gained access to, right? Well, it would have been great to know how much time has passed since the last episode, because in the last episode, that was when we saw them close the deal. I don't know if a week has passed. There had to be some time, short period of time that has passed for them to get a house that quick, you get a spot that quick, and then all of a sudden, all this stuff is going. It doesn't happen that quick. And I kind of feel like we live in a world where there are a lot of people that want instant gratification, but it doesn't happen that fast in reality. So that's why I was a little confused and thought maybe there was a little bit of time that passed, even if it was like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. They didn't really establish that, so that was a little annoying to me. But go ahead.
No, because I'm kind of thinking about with Power. Remember when they did with Power when Raquel got the new house? They moved them out of the projects,
Oh yes.
and I think they went to Jersey. I'm not sure. It's been so long. Um, but if here's the thing, they're dealing. Obviously, they're paying with full cash, so things move much quicker. And plus, it's okay if everything is not completely realistic. Everything was much different back then in the 80s. That was the
Mhm.
1900s. So, no, so and you're paying cash, so it eliminates a lot of different things. So I was okay with them getting that house right away. I just wish that we could have gotten a little bit more of a reaction because right away we just had the house, and opposed to, mama and daddy looking miserable. Like, how dare you? I would have loved to
Yep.
learn more about that. But no, I was completely fine with the house. Obviously, it's going to bring a lot more attention because suddenly we're moving into this really nice fancy house.
Or rather, yeah, it looks like they're already moved in. If it's their base of
Mhm.
operations or something like that, but we'll see.
Well, it seemed like the bare minimum. Remember, they was working mainly out of the garage with getting the cars in and out.
Well, yeah. Well, that was the car wash, but we saw them inside,
Oh,
like it looked like it was like a mansion or something. That was why I was like, well,
oh
where did
yeah.
that come from? Yeah. So,
Yes.
but we'll see what happens. Um, so I want to get to these other quick two topics here because so that
Hmm.
we can wrap up in a little bit. Uh, we got to talk a little bit about B-Mickie in this episode. Obviously,
Mm.
we saw what happened at the end of the episode and the attempt to get the weapon that Brian had in his house. I will admit right now, I thought something was going to happen to Kevin because he was in that
Hmm.
house and B-Mickie didn't know he was in the house, and then you saw him put basically try to hold him captive, throw him in the closet while he was looking for the weapon, and then he was unsuccessful. And then at the end, Meech
Hmm.
he pleads to Meech, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have anybody. And Meech tells him, oh, no, I always got your back all the time. You're my boy. So my question though is, I kind of feel like Meech is probably getting a little frustrated with B-Mickie, especially after this episode. Yes, he has his back, but the thing is that B-Mickie, before because he was missing in the beginning of this episode, he said he's been gone for a couple of days or whatever. So clearly, they're not communicating, and then he was going to be the one to try to kill Bryant until Meech came and said, "No, you can't. Don't do that. Don't do that." But my question is, where do you think Meech and B-Mickie go from here? Because obviously they were unsuccessful in getting the weapon. B-Mickie did not get the weapon, so it makes me wonder now. So what's going to happen now from here? Now he was worried
Hmm.
that perhaps Bryant knows that he had something to do with this, and they know, and they emphasized that at the very end when they had the final words before the show went off, saying that they feel that Bryant is now going to be coming after them. So I just wanted to pose the question of what do you think is next for these two characters?
Well, one of two things. During the conversation, remember the whole thing was he was trying to get the gun because that was going to frame him, and Meech walked him through it. It was like, okay, well, did you sign this? Was there paperwork? No. So that's to tell you that it's completely off the record. So anything that you can legally, I am not a lawyer, but I watch YouTube. Um, if he was to try to actually frame him for the murders, well, not frame him, but he actually did the murders, but to bring up the whole situation with the murders and the gun, he didn't go through it legally. So that again makes me wonder what if B-Mickie was to say walk away, that he would have a better chance of not being charged with a full murder as opposed to, you know, him thinking that he would. I also think that I don't know whether or not Meech and him are 100% cool. I also don't know from the perspective of B-Mickie that he entirely believes Terry, Meech. Because to go back, remember the whole situation with Terry and how he is really upset that Terry essentially took the spot that belonged to him. He views that Meech is more loyal to Terry and is not really seeing the assets that Meech brings to the table. Remember how they always called him always be missing?
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about
So
B-Mickie. What B-Mickey's bringing
be
to the table.
Mickey.
That's what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah.
Brad, yeah, so he's not feeling fully appreciated. So I wonder if he is going to look at Meech and truly believe that he has his back, because because to him, Meech went to Terry like, yes, you can buy me. Here's some burial grounds and a plot of land, but what have you actually done for me lately? What I thought you was going to do, you went and you did it to Terry. And I had a conversation with the actor Miles Truitt, who plays B-Mickie, which will upload on Friday because we're filming this on Thursday, so we're getting there. But I had a conversation about him in the car and that scene with him and Terry, Meech. Sorry, I'm mixing everyone up. Him and Meech was there's a lot of things that B-Mickie is putting together from the past in their conversation that will end up being used later on in the episode, and that there are certain people that he does not trust, and that does not mean that he will always believe you in that conversation. So again, going back to relationship that he has with Meech, it's not at the same level that what he is putting out there, he feels he's not getting back. So it's very easily he can go completely rogue with this and not involve Meech. So I just wonder how much he is going to tell Meech and what's really going on. And also, you look at the situation still, even though he was being used by Bryant, he was also being framed by him by B-Mickie as well. So I wonder how much trust does he fully have with B-Mickie in terms of Meech. So there's a lot of gray area within both of these characters. Yes, you can say I'm here for you, but again, your actions, what are your actions? And what was really interesting to me was B-Mickie is very analytical, which is what I liked. But to me, he seemed to react more on emotion than with analytics in terms of going into the house and trying to get the gun back. Not accounting for the fact that his son could be there. Because remember, it's not like he doesn't know who the son is. He was forced to beat up the bullies, the son's bullies previously. So he knows that the son exists. He knows probably where the son is living with his father. So I just wonder if he is still analytical or is he acting purely on emotion. I don't know where this whole situation will go, and that's kind of what I liked about it. So it's interesting.
Oh no, I agree. I agree. And like you said, the point that you made about the fact that he may not trust Meech fully because he sees how Meech interacts with Terry. When things got
Hmm.
tough, he relied on them, and of course, they are real brothers. They are actual blood brothers. So it's I understand why he would be hesitant. So I look forward to seeing what happens next. So definitely a job well done on that story as well. um,
Mhm.
for sure. So to go on to the final point that I wanted to make, and then if you was anything else you wanted to mention after that, we can. We have to now talk about to mirror your name, vibrating beds and skillets. What do you think about this blossoming relationship between Bryant and his new main squeeze, his fellow
Hey,
detective? They're supposed to be partners now, not life partners. Okay, this is a job, but not. They took it to another level in this episode. So, what do you think about that? And I will give you my thoughts after you tell me what your thoughts.
I hate this with every passion. Every ounce of my soul and my fiber burns with hatred for this and what they have done to these characters. This was so unnecessary. As we kind of previously stated, when we were like, please don't go this way, and then they went this way. There is no chemistry between the two. I do not view this as a romantic relationship. Remember how she said, "Oh, I need you to do something for me," and that was just basically both of them to get off. I do not hope that this becomes anything romantic. I again, this just is not needed to happen. It serves no purpose to the story overall at all. Um, so I was just very disappointed. Unless you wanted to show two lonely people getting it on, that's literally all I got from this. But it ended up having an interesting conversation after that scene. He is seeing all the bruises that is on her body that is self-inflicted, and she doesn't go into everything, but she is better. She kind of explains that it's better I take it out on me. How she takes it out of the frustration and the anger and the pain on herself as opposed to someone else, or to have another way of relieving stress. So I did like the fact that he is learning more about her, even something as personal as I self-inflict my self-inflicted wounds because it's a form of self-soothing. I like that part. Everything else we don't need this. Why? Why?
Yeah, I do agree that that final part was really the only thing that was important as far as what they discussed in this episode. I personally think all of that other stuff was added with the whole scene of them two. That was added to further dramatize the show because you want to have all of these juicy things that you want people talking about. That's the only reason why I feel that was in there. Yes, we can say that throughout the weeks there were certain interactions they had where you knew something was going to happen, and then of course we saw the kiss previously. So yeah, they put that stuff in there, but it wasn't necessary. Absolutely not. No, because it didn't really go anywhere. Now I would still be curious to see. We know how far Detective Bryant is willing to go, including breaking the law to do what he wants to do. We still, I think we could still see the question of whether or not she is also going to be willing to keep doing the same thing. If she really cares about her integrity and her job, is she going to be willing to go, do whatever she has to do like he does in certain respects? We've seen that some of that already this season. So I will be curious to know where does it go from here. But I don't know.
But
But go
but
ahead.
see, that's what I liked about them. I like the fact that she is transforming kind of basically into him. When you're
Yeah.
around someone so much, even though they haven't been around so much, so they're trying to have that trust building thing. She's slowly becoming him, and so I want to know where that gray line lands, and where does she say no, or if she ever does say no. I would really would rather pay attention to that as opposed to boom boom scene with them together. Um, so I liked that part. What's interesting, kind of just going back, they got rid of the what was it, the head commander sergeant dude. They got rid of him. So I wonder what are they going to do now? Are they going to
Yeah,
continue to participate in illegal ways? Yeah.
yeah. You're talking about the lady that transferred the previous.
Yeah.
She
They
transferred.
got
Yeah,
rid of
yes.
yeah, they got rid of Commander. So Commander Beckwith has been transferred, and now you have Major Damon Gar.
Yep.
He's
Hmm.
now there. So I wonder how that if that changes. how dirty cops are they going to be? Is this someone who is looking to change the police force from the inside out? And you have to be more leery when you have someone who's completely new. And then also, I wonder, will they start going back on previous, like the evidence? Remember, there was like all of that those drugs that were missing, and we never really got to see how they replaced the drugs because they used it to set up that whole B-Mickie situation, and we never got to see how the drugs was replaced. So there's a
Well,
lot
well,
of
no, they
things. Yeah,
well, no, they did tell us how they told us how they
they
replaced it with the
told us, but
synthetics.
I wanted to
They didn't show it.
see. I
Yep.
like seeing
Hmm.
things. I don't like expositions. I like when you just show me what
Yep.
is going
I
on.
agree. I agree 100%. They need to show a lot of this stuff, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see if they show us some more in the remaining two episodes in regards to some of the events that happened. Just like when you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier about the whole thing with K9 and Cena, we didn't see that either. And they could have easily said they could have said that he could have made a comment about the fact that he saved Cena, but we never saw it either. So they dropped the ball in that completely with that explanation. But I agree. I agree. They need to show us more as opposed to telling us this is what happened. That would be appreciated for sure. But
Mhm.
we'll see what happens. Um, so on that note, was there any other things you wanted to discuss about this episode that we didn't talk about?
Just really the part with Lawanda. I really like. I did interview, like I stated, I interviewed her previously, so we're gonna see where that arc goes in season 3. I really like that they're putting in Lawanda being her own person. That to me was just a nice, lovely highlight that was mentioned. So we're gonna see her act upon that, and the fact when she went to the two detectives and she was like, you know what, screw you, because you really saw that she was torn. They played that really well. You saw that she was torn between the pressures of what the detective wanted and her trying to keep a family together. And the fact that she later saw Markeisha with Terry, nope, Meech, was it Meech? Yep, Meech. Sorry, getting them confused sometimes. She saw um, them together. It was really interesting how she realized, he is not there. She tried to almost kill him, and for her, and to say, Beach had to calm her down. This is the one, this is not the place. And two, everybody's taking care of themselves. When are you going to start taking care of yourself? So we do know that she wants to be a better mother for her child. And now we're getting into her wanting to be a better person for herself, finding that happiness. Who is she also as a person? Does she have any friends? What does her life look like? So I like that we're able to get a little inkling of that, her being her own person and taking charge. Which to me wonders, in order for her to find her happiness, is she going to truly let go of Terry and let him go off and do his own little thing and not to say you can't keep the family together, because you can, but just let him just go off, and he's no longer my man, and I'm okay with that. So that was one of the nice little things that happened that I appreciated. And then kind of, I think that's basically it with everything. Um, yeah. So I just look forward to what is going to happen with, the new Connect, what's going to happen with Boom, and a lot of things is just what how does this all come into play? Where you're introducing a lot of new people, so there's going to be conflict within that. So I look forward. And then, K9's people is just gone to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Um, we'll see what happens. Like I said, the show was entertaining. It has some storylines that I definitely want to see what happens. So I'm not saying that it's a bad show. I
Hmm.
like I said before, there are certain things I wish there was a more of a explanation, but overall, it is still a entertaining show. So I look forward to seeing what happens in the next two episodes. I obviously am expecting some major things to happen in the finale in 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens. But overall, well, go ahead.
No, also Detective Bryant, he's going to. fight back. Because remember, that was his kid. He tied up his,
Yeah.
that was his
Oh
son. He
yeah.
threw in the closet.
Yeah, I expect him to go scorched earth in the next episode. I still think it's going to be a situation where the finale is when a lot of major things happen because they
Hmm.
want you waiting to see what happens next season. They got to give you a reason to watch season 3. But some stuff is definitely going to happen next week. I feel like it should. So we have to wait and see
Yeah.
how it all plays out. Um, but on that note, I think that concludes our discussion on BMF season 2, episode 8. Push it to the limit. Dana, do you have any shout outs that you would like to give before we get ready to
Shout
wrap up
out
the show?
to shout outs to everyone who listens to us, who watches us. So thank you for that. Um, yeah, so just that, and we have a lot of more content coming up. We have Daisy Jones and the Six is a very huge TV show that is coming out, I guess, in a couple of hours because today we're filming this on a Thursday. So we have interviews with that cast. Also, I was able to attend uh, award shows. So we have the Will Smith giving a speech at the African American Film Critics Association. So that was kind of his very first outing in public, giving speeches, accepting an award on behalf of emancipation, which I did not vote for him, but whatever. Cool. I'm happy he showed. He got his award. He gave a conversation. You can watch that also on the YouTube channel, and we'll have a lot more of BMF interviews that are happening on the other channel. Remember, we have Power is popping off, and hopefully we are going to do the same thing in terms of interviews with that cast. We'll be talking to cast members weekly about their episode coming up. So that should be very exciting to watch and exciting to talk about everyone and see how Tariq is growing up and being a man now. So just stay tuned to that. That'll be on the main channel, and we'll have a lot more interviews here on this channel as well and other events. And yeah, so just thank you overall for listening. And if you like it, like and subscribe. And we love hearing from you. So talk that talk, people.
Absolutely. I agree. So yeah, let me start. Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to everybody that's been leaving comments on all the content. We definitely, as I've always said, we like when it's an interactive experience. So we definitely want you guys to like and leave your comments. And of course, I will respond. We'll respond to some of the comments also. Just depending on if you say some stuff that what you feel about the show. So definitely continue to do that. If you have made it
Mm-hmm.
to the very end of this particular show, thank you for watching. I want to tell you also, earlier today, I actually recorded. Gary and I recorded our Snowfall episode 3 recap. I would encourage you to go to the main Koalition channel, check out that recap, and if you've missed the first 2 episodes, definitely check out those recaps as well. And I'm just going to tell you, like I said on the Snowfall show, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but to me, that is the best show on TV right now in terms of BMF. If we're talking about these types of shows, Snowfall is on another level. And I'm going to say it. I've
Ooh.
been saying it on every show we've done. But yeah,
Ooh.
feel free to let us know what you think. If you think we're wrong or whatever, feel free to let us know. But check out the recap before you comment because definitely want to know what people think about the show because final season is off to a very strong start. So but check that out. And of course, and as Dana alluded to, we'll be talking about Power as well. That show starts in about 2 weeks. So make sure you come back to the main Koalition channel for that. And then of course, for BMF, you're already at the right place. Stay on this channel. We will be covering episode 9 and 10 in the next 2 weeks. Gary might be joining us also for the finale, so we definitely are going to try to get all together, try to schedule a time where we can all talk about the show. But definitely, we appreciate your continued support. We look forward to talking more about the show next week. But until then, we hope that you all have a great week and weekend. We will talk to you all next week.
And also, there's a Damon Idris interview that's on the main channel. That was a couple
Yes,
months ago.
yes,
Well, he talks about season 3. So,
yes.
yay.
All right. We'll talk to y'all next time.